On July 20th of 1969, Apollo 11, a US spacecraft, landed on the moon. Prior to this, in 1961, John F. Kennedy had promised that America would put a man on the moon and bring him back home safely by the end of the decade, marking his infamous moon speech. Now, putting a man on the moon, or going to the moon, seemed like an achievable goal now, something that is inevitable, something that can be accomplished. But 1961 was a completely different time. People didn't believe in impossible things. People didn't believe in moonshots. When the moon landing was finally accomplished, it didn't only prove America to be ahead of its time in terms of technology and achievement, but it also coined the term moonshots, the possibility of believing and executing impossible things. During 5th grade, I actually had the privilege of visiting the NASA Center and touring the area where they first launched the man-made mission to the moon. I saw a quote by John F. Kennedy that really resonated with me. It said, "Every accomplishment starts out with a decision to try." We all have a time that we can look back to when we accomplished something great, something that seemed impossible at the time, whether it was landing that summer internship, getting that job we always wanted, or getting 100% on a test. We all know what achievement and accomplishment feels like, but we often forget that the first step towards that achievement was our willingness to try. We never would have landed that summer internship or got that test grade we always wanted if we didn't put in the work, if we didn't believe that we could actually do it, even if it seemed impossible at the time. Results and achievements are determined by the work that you put in, and also just deciding that I'm going to take a step forward and try it. Naturally, growing up, I was a moonshot thinker, someone who used to use your imagination and think big. I loved building things and putting things together and imagining a better version of the world. We're all a product of our thoughts, of our imagination. So why not think big? Why not think bigger? Why not take a different approach than the person sitting beside you? Why not think out of the box? One thing that I've noticed by being involved in the tech industry is that things don't change when everything is the same. We don't grow from conventional thoughts. We grow from unconventional thinking. We don't rely on complacency to progress the human race. We rely on change. We rely on imagination. We rely on moonshot thinking. As I started to learn about exponential technologies and how we can solve problems with it, essentially use technology as a tool to solve some of the world's biggest problems, I started getting in touch with my imagination again. I started believing in moonshots again. I will say one of the reasons why I felt so in touch with my imagination and started thinking outside of the box again is because I started believing in a different version of the world, a better version of the world, powered by technologies like virtual reality, 3D printing, neurotechnology, cutting-edge technologies that can really have huge impact on our population. I started to explore these technologies. I started finding powerful intersections between them. How can we combine two different technologies and make them solve a really big problem? I found a lot of intersections, and one of the most intersections that I deep dive into was the power of space technology and virtual reality. How can we bring better health frameworks and medical care to space? We've definitely progressed so much as a human race, from the first time that we decided to put a man on the moon to now wanting to seek life in other habitable planets like Mars. From enterprises like NASA trying to start a whole new era of space exploration and put a whole group of people on Mars by 2024, to SpaceX's mission being to make life multi-planetary, we've definitely come a long way in terms of understanding these moonshot concepts and a whole new world, or a whole new universe. But along with all these exploration and moonshots, we've also started to see an increasing amount of problems that we've been able to identify and need to combat, specifically towards astronauts' health and well-being in space. One of the most prevalent issues in terms of astronauts' health is cardio systems not being as strong once astronauts travel to space. Respiratory and lung issues prove to be another problem that many astronauts are facing due to their unique living situations. And a recent study came out where scientists are trying to explore the link between lunar dust and how it could have a significant, serious effect on future astronauts' lungs in space. Through a recent research study done on lunar dust samples, it showed that almost about 90% of neurons and human DNA cells died while being exposed to these lunar dust samples. Right now, to combat a lot of these issues, scientists are prescribing balanced and healthy diets to be able to help astronauts regain muscle mass and strength in space. A new wearable came out where shirts are being used to monitor heartbeat and vital signs and relay those messages back to Earth. This is called a biomonitor. The smart shirt can also be worn during sleep to monitor exercise and the performance of astronauts in space. The system is designed easily to send information to and from Earth, where scientists can monitor astronauts' health 24/7 as they are in space and orbit around the planet. Here's where the power of technologies like virtual reality come in. Recently, there's a lot of reports and articles been surfacing on combining virtual reality and using it to boost the mental health of astronauts in space, and also giving them different simulations to work on. You've been following the 3-year Mars story like I have, and you would know that virtual reality is already being used to not only boost the mental health of astronauts in space, but also give them these live simulations to work off of. So if they throw on a VR headset, they literally be able to view space as if it's already there, putting them into an environment where they have to practice all the same actions as if they were actually there. A virtual reality company has been resurfacing called AI that actually thinks they might have the key to be able to connect astronauts in space to people down on Earth using virtual holographic images. AI has a special volumetric video system that has a bunch of different 3D cameras. And these 3D cameras take pictures, detailed pictures of what you can call human subjects, and then literally drops them into virtual landscapes or virtual environments. Literally a virtual reality stimulator. We could possibly even use the system to keep track of astronauts' health in space, allowing them to communicate with doctors, physicians, or specialists down back on Earth. I know, sounds like some pretty crazy and honestly unrealistic stuff, but that's what a lot of these space technologies are built on, is diving into these moonshot ideas, thinking of something bigger and brighter that we could do, and working on a vision to be able to execute. In time, we're starting to see different patterns of the way technology works, and neurotech is different. As we grow into society, research, exponential innovation, that innovation in neurotech has also had much growth. With more growth in technologies like virtual reality, we're starting to see how it can apply it to different fields, especially fields of neurotech, possibly even treating and understanding brain disorders better using virtual reality. Recently, a new field of neurotechnology, one that allows us to have a fundamental understanding of the brain and also be able to manipulate it in different ways, called brain simulation, has been gaining a lot of traction. And what's been gaining even more traction is technologies that we can use to do it. Brains are already being mapped and stimulated through computational power by building brain models. However, there is more of a complex challenge to this. And it's a really hard one that scientists have not really been able to dissect. On average, the human brain has 86 million brain cells, known as neurons, and they also have 7,000 connections to each of those neurons, known as synapses. It's pretty hard to map the brain with that many connections and that many neurons. We have to figure out different ways of how we're going to stimulate the brain using either computational power technologies like virtual reality to convert those structures into possible 3D models. Drug discovery is another application and field open directly from brain stimulation. Once we better understand people's diseases, we can find better treatments and are better equipped to understand how to deal with them. When I take a look at all these different areas of interest, whether it's neurotechnology or space technology or even the global health crisis, one thing that I realized is the bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. We can use this as an opportunity to do better, to leverage tools like technology and solve these issues. And while I was doing my deep dive into problems that exist in the world, I realized one main problem, a really big fundamental one, is global health. And that's why this worldwide healthcare efficiency inspired me to take matters into my own hands and kind of pair it with technology. How can we use virtual reality to combat problems in global health? To give more context, we're lucky enough to be living in a part of the world where the evolution of health is constantly growing, with new innovations coming out left and right faster than we can ever imagine. But developing countries can't do the same thing. I mean, if you look at their timeline of innovation, their timeline of growing technology, it's constant, the same. Nothing ever changing, growing, or developing, simply because they don't have the resources to be able to do so. Compare that to a country like Qatar, which currently has the most density of physicians to patients around the world, having almost 8 doctors for their capita of 1,000 patients, exceeding the WHO standards immensely. And that's why for the past few months, I've been working on a really cool project that integrates virtual reality and health. Not necessarily looking at technology and problems in a different way, but but using them so we can create a powerhouse, an intersectional powerhouse, and be able to solve those problems using emerging technology. By creating this idea of virtual hospitals, a way for doctors and patients from all parts of the world to connect over a similar platform and get diagnosed better and feel like they have someone who's taking care of them. So we can increase that demand and that supply of doctors. We would even be able to communicate with patients in real time and be able to question them on what's wrong, what are their symptoms, and really analyze their diseases, organ systems, or whatever's wrong in the 3D form. Virtual hospitals, I'm trying to figure out a way that we completely can change the technology that's used for telemedicine, go off of the concept of telemedicine, which is connecting doctors and patients from all parts of the world, but use virtual reality instead. What if there is a way that we can deploy virtual reality in different clinics around the world and have doctors and patients connect over a similar interface so they can interact, doctors can give a better diagnosis to patients, and even be able to see them virtually or their organs and organ systems in 3D. To demonstrate what this vision of the future will look like, I created a virtual hospital model using virtual reality software. And this is a 3-dimensional model of virtual surgery and basically an MRI scan taking place at the hospital, the virtual hospital, using the Autodesk and Google VR software to deploy how a vision of the setting would look like in the virtual world. You can also think of this as like characters in a video game and how they're able to interact with each other. VR is basically the stimulator of these senses to make them feel as if they're physically in that hospital. VR has a power to literally take whatever your environment is and almost turn it into a reality. Using SLAM, a feature of virtual reality, we can detect an object's motion in real time and translate that to the virtual world. For example, if you were to wear a VR headset and take a step forward in real life, that distance and that exact same movement would also be calculated and translated to the virtual world. Through the assistance of virtual hospitals, we can finally allow other people, kids around the world, families, to really be involved in this change with us and allow them to feel like they have a support network from some of the most amazing research hospitals or hospitals in general around the world. People that really care about delegating medical resources to those who need it the most. And there's nothing more valuable than that. I'm sure we can all conclude that a lot of things that did not seem in our realm of possibility a little over 50 years ago are now our new reality. But it's not enough to just end the discussion there. We have to find a way to create a dynamic shift in the process that doesn't only allow us to focus on the technology and the future of tomorrow, but figure out how we can combine emerging technology and create intersections to solve problems we're experiencing today in terms of space technology, global health, what's going on in our brain, important issues like climate change, and really cater that towards our existing population right now. And hopefully technologies like brain mapping, robotic surgery using virtual reality, or virtual hospitals can play a huge part in that role. One thing's for sure, and our past does prove this, is that we never achieve anything when we're complacent or we're okay with the way things are. We're always innovating, we're always thinking of something new. All it takes is for someone to come up with an idea that seems audacious. But our world runs on audacious ideas. Our world runs on ideas that seem impossible at the time. We just keep fueling them with different tools like technology to be able to solve them. When I was much younger, I used to build things. That was a favorite childhood memory. Just putting things together with Lego blocks, figuring out a way that I can make towers and make existing products built out of Legos and building blocks. If you think about it now, technology is exactly like those Legos. There are tools that can be used for a much greater purpose. Except from just building towers, we can build things that can save people's lives. Not only the fact that he said, let's put a man on the moon, it's also the inspiration in his words. It's him telling everybody that, hey, I might not know how to do this. I might not know how to put a man on the moon, but I'm willing to try. Because every achievement, every accomplishment in the human race starts off with a decision to try. It starts off with a decision to believe in impossible things. It starts off with a decision to believe in moonshots. It starts off with wanting to believe that we can take something impossible and turn it into something that can be.
And now, if America's new spacecraft succeeds in reaching Venus, we will have literally reached the stars before midnight tonight.
All it takes is for someone to come up with an idea that seems audacious. But our world runs on audacious ideas. Our world runs on ideas that seem impossible at the time. We just keep fueling them with different tools like technology to be able to solve them. It's time for unconventional thinking. It's time for moonshots. But more so, it's time to take moonshots and turn them into earth shots. turn them into things that we can start working on right now. Take really big ideas and deconstruct them so we can eventually turn them into our future.